begin with a recap of the concepts what we did in the last class. So I'll be calling out your numbers and I expect you to switch on your video and audio and then join the conversation. So starting with roll number 28.
Yes, sir.
What is finance? How would you define finance?
So, finance is the art and science of managing funds and other assets in order to increase profits.
Okay. Roll number 4. What are the three branches of finance?
Sir, personal finance, corporate finance, and public finance.
Okay. Roll number 36. 28, you can mute yourself. Roll number 36.
Hello, sir.
Yes, what personal finance deals with?
Personal finance deals with uh, is raising fund through
No, personal
finance.
finance. No, repeat.
Personal finance deals with skills
No.
through.
Rule number 44, can you answer this question?
Sir, 44, sir.
Yeah, rule number 44. What is personal finance?
Sir, managing our funds like retirement funds, retirement planning.
Personal finance is retirement planning.
No,
Okay, that's one of the things what we do, but that itself not personal finance.
managing our own funds, sir.
Okay, managing your incomes and expenses in a way that you achieve your financial goals. Rule number 42. What is public finance? Rule number 42.
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, be a little loud and answer the question.
The public finance deals with the government entities, role of government like income and expenditure in the economy.
Okay, so public finance deals with government budgets, how it manages its revenue and expenditure in order to meet the public expenditure. Rule number 41. What is corporate finance? Define corporate finance the way we discussed in the last class.
Yes, sir. Sir, it is a process of raising funds, administrating funds, allocating funds, and controlling of funds with an objective of maximizing the wealth of the business.
Okay, wealth of the shareholders. Okay, good. Next,
Thank you,
rule
sir.
number 39.
Yes, sir.
What are the four decisions in financial management or in corporate finance?
One is financing decision
Mm,
and investing decision, dividend decisions, and just comparing the standards with the actual results.
Oh, that's called controlling. But what is the last decision? The last decision is called liquidity decision, also known as working capital management.
Yes,
So
sir.
we will begin with the first decision, which is financing decision. And financing decisions, one of the important aspect is determining the capital structure, which means in financing decision, one of the important aspects what the finance department has to do is it has to acquire the most important resource which is needed to commence the business, to expand the business, to survive the competition, and that is funds, that is capital. So one of the important aspects of financing decision is deciding the capital structure. Now, how do we decide capital structure? On what basis? First of all, what do you mean by capital structure? These are some of the points which we would be discussing in today's class, right? So financing decisions are concerned with deciding capital structure and procurements of funds. So the first thing what the finance department or the CFO of the organization should do is identify the fund requirement, because in order to carry out any business operations, you have to first identify how much money is needed, how much money is required. So whether it can be a new project or whether it can be altogether a new type of business which the company wants to start. So you have to estimate the fund requirements. That means you have to basically decide, okay, if I want to start this kind of business or if I want to undertake this kind of project, how much funding is required, how much money is required. Now, let's say Tata Motors, which is one of the pioneers and leading automobile company in India, has very high aspirations of expanding and diversifying its business into electric vehicles. And now electric vehicles is the future, as you know. And you also know that Telsa also had recently registered in India in Bangalore, because it also has the aspirations of doing business in India. So if tomorrow Telsa starts its operations in India, right now it has just registered as a company, but obviously it doesn't want to start its business operations in India. How much money would be required? So how much money would Telsa needs to set up its business operations in India? Or how much money Tata Motors would need to start a new venture of electric vehicles? So that is where companies have to do in detail study, in detail examination, because if the estimation of funds go incorrectly, then disastrous things can happen. It can lead to shortage of capital, and shortage of capital means the entire process would become incomplete. So therefore, at the very beginning, when you're estimating the financial requirements, the estimations need to be accurate. The estimates, it should not be underestimated, neither it should be overestimated. Because in case if you overestimate, you will have idle funds which are lying at your disposal, and these funds will always have a cost. They are not procured free of cost. Of course, you have to pay a huge amount of interest on them. So getting the fund requirement correctly is the first step in financing decision. So therefore, the finance manager along with the other operational managers have to sit and decide what are the assets that needs to be required, what is the cost, what is the cost of operating those assets, right? How long will it take for the company to recover the money? All this needs to be decided before procuring the funds. So that's the first step. First step is to identify or estimate what is the fund requirement. Now, once you have identified, okay, this is the amount of money which is needed, the second step is wherein you decide what are the possible means and ways from where you can procure these funds. So let's say you want to set up a new business and you have identified that all you need is somewhere around 80 lakh rupees to start a business, right? Or let us make it a little more simpler. That is, let's say after completing your MCOM, you want to start a play school for children, which has a good potential for business, especially in a city like Bangalore, where most of them these days are working. We have more and more working couples. We have more and more people who are taking up job, both men and women, and therefore there is a need of play homes and play schools. So it has a very good potential. So all you have to do is first identify how much money does it require to start a play school. Whether you want to start your own play school or do you want to take up a franchise. There are already established play schools like Eurokids, where you have Bachpan, you have Z Kids, so many others. So would you like to go for a franchisee model, wherein already there is a model established by the brand and you have to just acquire the rights to run the play school? Or would you like to set up your own brand identity and then do the business? The answer is no matter which model you choose, right? It has its own financial implications. So if you end up selecting, let's say you opt for EuroKids, which is already an established chain of franchisee based play schools in India, then you don't have to spend a lot of money on advertisement and branding because the brand is already well established. So that is where you can get to save the money. But on the other hand, in case if you start school on your own, you want to create your own brand identity, then you have to shell out a lot of money on advertisement, branding, promotion, right? But the first option also has a limitation. In first option, you have to spend a lot of money on franchisee fees. So in order to start a EuroKid branch, you may have to give 10 lakh rupees deposit. You may have to give 15 lakh rupees deposit. So either option has both pros and cons, which you have to weigh and then try to establish and come to a conclusion that how much funding is required, right? So that's the first step, whether it is a play school, excuse me, or whether it is a big corporation or whether it is starting a new project, you have to get the estimation correct. Once you're done with the estimation, the second job is where do you get the funds from? Let's say play school, you have identified that you need 80 lakh rupees. Now, what are the list of options available to get this 80 lakh rupees? So option number one, let's talk about individuals. Let's then go and explore the option for companies. Let's talk about as an individual, for you, what are the options you have if you want to start a play school? And of course, you need 80 lakh rupees. That's what is the fund estimation you have done. So from where will you get this money from? What are the list of possibilities? What are the list of options that are available for you to procure the funds? So step number one is estimating the funds. Step number two is identifying the sources of fund. So what are the sources? Source number one can be your own savings, if you have saved any money, right? Which is probably not possible at this stage because you're still a student who is pursuing your education. And at this stage of your life, you would hardly have any money saved, right? So option number two, you can borrow the money from parents. I wouldn't say borrowing, but if you still want to use the word borrowing, because when we say borrow, you have to give it back also. When your parents are giving money, I'm sure you need not return it back. But let's say that is also an option, borrowing money. Option number three is to go for a partnership. Probably you can figure out if some of your friends who are financially sound, who have access to financial resources, would like to partner with you and use your entrepreneurship skills and their financial resources combined together and start a venture. So explore if your friends are willing to join with you to start this new venture. This is option number three. Option number four is the most feasible option, and that option is to go for a loan. Right now, going for a loan also has its own challenges. Some banks will give you loan only if there's a collateral. Some banks are willing to offer you loans without any collateral also, but obviously the rate of interest will be much more higher, right? Option number 6 or 7 can also be pledging your gold ornaments, whatever you have, if you have any gold, and then taking a loan against the gold what you have. So these are the list of options that are available for an individual like you. And of course, when I was discussing a same topic a couple of years back, another student gave a very interesting option, and that option was of getting married. So that student was of the opinion that anyways at the time of marriage, especially since he was a male, at the time of marriage he would get a lot of gifts from his in-laws, and that money can be used for starting up a new venture. So these are also some of the ideas which your generation also has in their mind. But you have to be very careful in the last option, because what is so called as gift, if the same word is replaced by dowry, then you have to spend the rest of your life in jail, right? But nonetheless, these are the options which are available. Now, what we do here is after we have identified all the options, we have to do ratification. We have to do an assessment as to which option is more viable, more feasible, right? So in order to do this evaluation of different sources of fund, there has to be a criteria. So that's the third option. The first step, Identifying sources of, first step is to estimate the funds. Second step is to identify the sources of funds. Third step is to evaluate the sources what you have identified. And that's what I want to ask you people, that what is the evaluation criteria? Now, when we say evaluation criteria, what do you mean by that? For example, if you want to buy a mobile phone, you have certain parameters which you have predefined, which will act as a selection criteria. For example, if let's say roll number 4 is planning to buy a mobile phone, she already has identified certain criteria, and only if those criteria will meet, she will go ahead and buy that mobile phone. So what are her criteria? Let's say she want a very high resolution camera, and more than the back camera, she wants selfie camera to be more efficient. She wants the phone to look good, stylish, very unique color combination. The phone has to be very light in the hand. The phone needs to have a very good battery capabilities. The phone need to have very good processor. So these are her some expectations. These are the parameters what she has set to buy the mobile phone. Now, whenever she goes to a store or whenever she is planning to buy this online, what she does is she will evaluate these parameters, and if her mobile phones which she is browsing, surfing or going through, if they meet these criteria, she will shortlist first, and then finally she will take a call which phone she has to buy. So same thing happens here also, or for that matter, same thing happens in most of the decision making process. You guys have studied decision making process in management. So this is what we do in management also, right? We evaluate various options. So that's perhaps what we are doing here also in financing decisions. After we have identified a number of sources through which funds can be procured, we have to evaluate those options. Now the question is, I gave you an example. If you're buying a mobile phone, what are the evaluation criteria? Now, similarly, for this, what are the evaluation criteria? Which source of fund is best or better for the organization? What is the evaluation criteria? Can any one of you identify the evaluation criteria for selecting a source of fund? Anybody?
Sir, the in which you have to repay.
Okay, so one of you mentioned that the rate at which you have to repay. I would rather simplify this term and replace this with cost, also known as cost of capital, which is denoted by alphabet K when we use formulas. So cost of capital is one of the deciding factors. Cost of capital is nothing but the amount of money what you have to pay periodically to the lender of funds. The money what you pay to the lender of funds is called cost of capital. So this is one of the important deciding factor, because if the cost of capital or if the rate of borrowing is too high, then it will have serious implications on the profits which you would be earning in the future. Because if the cost of capital is too high, most of the profits what you earn will go in repaying the interest itself. So there is hardly any money left with you. So you have to ensure that you get a good deal. You get a cost of capital which is quite efficient, which is quite economical, and which does not create any kind of financial burden or any kind of other financial repercussions in the future. So that's the one criteria which is being identified by you people. There's one more criteria. There are only two criteria of choosing a source of fund. So first one is the cost of capital, or the rate of return what you have to offer to the lenders. What is the other criteria? What is the other side of the coin? The first is cost. What is the other side?
So any institution might ask you to pledge something.
Collateral.
Yes, collaterals will be needed. So depending on that also, we do decide our sources of getting the capital.
Okay, so either you have, when you're going for debt, either you have secured loans. In secured loans, you have to pledge or you have to give a collateral. In case of unsecured loan, you don't have to offer any collateral. Now, what's the difference between a secured loan and unsecured loan? Is that the rate of interest for unsecured loans is relatively much more higher than secured loans. For secured loans, the rate of interest is much more nominal, much more economical. But unfortunately, what happens is when you're starting your business, which is relatively new, you have nothing to offer. You have, because you want to take the loan and then you want to buy the assets. But when you don't have anything in your hand, unfortunately, at that time, you can't go for secured loans because you have nothing to offer as a collateral. So that's also a point. But the second dimension, the first dimension is the cost. The second dimension is, I would say, something what you have identified would also come under this. And the second dimension is called risk. So we have to always evaluate various sources of funding on these two parameters. What is the cost? What is the risk? So if you are borrowing money from your parents, what is the cost and what is the risk? If you're using your own personal savings as a source of capital, what is the cost and what is the risk? If you're doing business under partnership and your friends are contributing the capital, whereas you are not contributing anything, you are using your own entrepreneurial expertise, but the other guy is contributing funds, he does not have entrepreneurial expertise. So in this case, when you're borrowing money from your friends and doing business in the form of partnership, what is the cost and what is the risk? When you're taking loan from a bank, what is the cost and what is the risk? When you're taking a loan by pledging the gold ornaments, what is the cost and what is the risk? And the other option, which one of the student had suggested me during my classes, that probably if you're a male, you should get married and take help from your in-laws, right? So what is the cost and what is the risk? So we have to do an evaluation. So in our sources, what we have identified in this, which one do you think is having a higher cost? Is it the savings? Is it the parents? Is it the partnership? Is it the bank loan? Which bears highest cost?
Bank
Cost, bank loan, obviously bank.
Bank.
Yes, I mean, do you think your parents would charge you a rate of interest for giving you money to do business? I'm sure they wouldn't be charging that. So that would be relatively free, right? And obviously, when you do business in partnership, there is a cost involved because you have to share your profits with your partners. But is there any cost involved if you do money with your own savings? Let's say there are so many of my friends who used to work with me in industry when I was working in corporates. And I see a lot of them now have quit their jobs and they're doing different businesses. One of my friend recently invited me for inauguration of a restaurant which he started. So he worked in companies for 10 years. Now he's into restaurant business. So all the money what he saved during his career is now being invested in restaurant business. So he has started a new restaurant. So is there any cost for your own savings? What do you think?
No, sir.
I mean, you don't have to pay interest for yourself, obviously. When you do business, whatever money you have saved, when you invest that in your business, all the profits you earn will go to you, of course. So you don't have to say that I want to give interest to myself. But from the perspective of finance, we always consider that your own savings also has a cost. And this cost in financial language is called opportunity cost. And this plays a very important role in most of the financing decisions. In fact, we take into account opportunity cost, not just in corporate finance, but also in personal finance. This cost plays a very important role. Now, what do you mean by an opportunity cost? Opportunity cost here implies to the opportunity what you have lost by taking the alternative decision. For example, let's say I was telling you about my friend who has started a business recently, restaurant, and he has spent almost 60 to 70 lakh rupees in starting this new restaurant. So let's say this 60 lakh rupees is the capital. This 60 lakh rupees is the investment which I had in my bank account as savings, which now I have channelized to my business requirement. Instead of starting this business, had I kept this money in a fixed deposit, how much money or how much interest I would have earned? At what rate? The answer is fixed deposits will offer you 7% interest roughly. So easily I would have earned 7% on 60 lakhs, which I am missing now, which I am losing now. I have lost the opportunity of earning that 7% because instead of keeping that money in the bank and earning 7% rate of interest, now I have invested the same money in business. So what is the opportunity cost? The answer is the opportunity cost is 7%, which I have lost because I decided to do business. So what we do is we do a projection, which is your next chapter. Next chapter is for investment decisions. Right now you're studying financing decision, capital structure. The name of the first chapter is designing a capital structure. That's the name of your first chapter, designing a capital structure, which is nothing but part of your financing decision. The next chapter is investment decision. After borrowing money, what do you do with that money? You have to invest in various assets to generate profits. So in the next chapter, you will learn that at the time of investing, how you should do the estimation, how you should estimate the profits. So let's say we have done a calculation that 60 lakh rupees I am investing in my business. And as per my estimation, after investing this 60 lakh rupees in the first year, I will earn only 5% on this. In the second year, I'm going to earn only 7%. In the third year, I'm going to earn only 8%. So should I invest or should I cancel my decision of investing? The answer is in the first year, you're getting a rate of return which is much more lesser than the opportunity cost. So probably you have to think whether you should go ahead or not because it's not helping you. In the second year also, you're hardly earning 7%, which is equal to opportunity cost. See, if the money is in the bank, it's safe. You don't have to do anything. You just sit at your home, you get the money. But in business, there is so much of circus you have to do. So many risk factors are there, right? So to just earn that 7%, is it worth taking so much of risk? So that assessment needs to be done. So the point what I wanted to make was that even if you invest your hard-earned savings, don't assume that there is no cost. There is a hidden cost called opportunity cost. So at the time of doing business with your own money, you should always consider opportunity cost to make informed decisions, right? And then of course, bank, as you mentioned, and you were right, that the highest cost in the options, what we listed out was bank loan. Bank loan, the cost is too high, between 12 to 15% is what you have to pay as interest on loan, which is very, very high in compared to all other options. So this is the first aspect, cost. What is the other aspect? The other aspect is risk. Cost, risk. Now, what is the risk? What kind of risk are we talking about? What is the risk? When you borrow money from somebody else, what is the risk? What do you think is the risk? Or for that matter, if it is your own money also, what is the risk? What is the risk that we are talking about? Yes,
Interest
29,
rates?
can you repeat?
Chance of having loss in the business.
Very good, one is a loss. 41, you also wanted to say something.
Sir, rates, interest rates?
Okay, 17.
Sir, at the if there's a loss where we are not able to meet the actual cost, so that is the risk involved.
Okay, very good.
Maybe the repayment is also another risk that I have, whether I'll have the capacity to repay after some time.
Very good. So all the points which you people have identified, 15, 29, 17, and 41, all these points can be clubbed in these two important risks which I'm about to mention. Whenever you borrow funds, of course, you might be thinking that whether you would be able to recover the investment or not, whether you'll be in finance language, whether you'll be able to break even or not. But the concept of break even comes into picture when we discuss the next chapter, investment decisions. So at the time of investing, we think when we will recover the original investment, when the break even will happen. But at the time of borrowing money, there are only two risks, which I think some of you have identified. Risk number one is called financial risk. Financial risk arises when the organization does not have sufficient profits to pay interest. When the organization does not have sufficient profits to pay interest, it is called financial risk. In other words, it is also called as financial leverage, what you guys have studied in your graduation in BCom. The second risk is called default risk, when the organization does not have sufficient money to repay the loan. So these are the two risks involved in borrowing the money. One is the financial risk, inability to pay interest. Second is the default risk, inability to repay the amount borrowed. So whenever you are deciding a particular source of fund, you should evaluate any source of fund on these two important parameters. Parameter number one, cost. Parameter number two, risk. And you have to choose a source of finance or a mix of different sources of finance that would offer you minimal cost and minimal risk. And any source of funding that offers minimum cost and minimum risk, in finance language, it is called optimal capital structure. Sometimes this is asked in examination in 2 marks. Define optimum capital structure. So optimum capital structure is nothing but combination of different sources of funds that offers minimum risk and minimum cost. So that's perhaps the entire objective of doing this entire circus of financing decisions. So let me repeat what are the steps. Step number one, estimating the fund requirements. Step number two, identifying the sources of funds. Step number three, evaluating various sources of fund. And remember, the two criteria of evaluation is cost and risk. Now, the fourth step is deciding the capital structure. Now, what do you mean by capital structure? Right, understanding the definition of capital structure is quite simple. First of all, what do you mean by capital? Capital means cash or goods or a combination of both, which is used to generate either income by investing in a business, right? So capital is nothing but the amount of cash which is employed in business operations. It is the money which is required to commence, to expand, to survive, to diversify the business needs, right? So it's the amount of money which is needed to invest in a business. That's the simplest definition, amount of money needed to invest in a business. Now, what do you mean by capital structure? Capital is nothing but the money you need to invest in business. What do you mean by capital structure? Now, capital structure means combination of various sources of funds. Combination of various sources of funds which is used as capital in the business. Now, when we say combination of various sources of funds, it's not just combination, it also includes proportion, right? So let's say I'm using debt, I'm also using equity. It becomes combination of debt and equity. But in what proportion? How much is debt and how much is equity? Is it 50-50, 60-40, 70-30? So when we say capital structure, it implies to both proportion and combination of different sources of funds used in the business. So one of the important tasks of a finance manager is to construct the capital structure. And this is perhaps what the first chapter deals with. It deals with designing capital structure. And once you design the capital structure, the last step is to procure the funds. So these are the steps involved in financing decisions. Now, let's talk about the most important step which we would be discussing in this chapter. Excuse me, and that is deciding capital structure. So in order to decide capital structure, we have different approaches in finance which are available. So we have different strategies of designing a capital structure. First of all, are you clear what do you mean by capital structure? Capital structure is nothing but different combinations and different proportion of funds used in the capital of an organization. So sometimes what happens, students get confused between these three terminologies. So before explaining you what are the different ways of designing capital structure, or what are the different approaches of designing capital structure, let me throw some lights that give you some sort of clarity on these three terminologies, which is also specifically mentioned in your syllabus. First is capital structure. Second is financial structure, and third is capitalization. So what's the difference between capital structure, financial structure, and capitalization? So let's discuss this. Probably I'll share a slide with you, which will help you in differentiating these three concepts, and we will differentiate this with the help of some numbers. Probably we'll discuss a balance sheet, and then this balance sheet would give you a better idea as to how to differentiate these three things. So let me quickly share the slide with you. So let's say this is the balance sheet, and when we say capital structure, capitalization, financial structure, obviously we have to look at the liability side. We don't look at asset side, right? That's of no relevance to us. So look at the finance, look at the liability side, and by looking at the liability side, you have to identify first what is capitalization in that, and then what is capital structure, and then what is financial structure. So the answer to this question is, when we say capitalization, capitalization means various sources of long-term funds used in the capital. Various sources of long-term funds used in the capital is called capitalization. Now, when we say long-term, how long? A long-term fund is defined as a source of fund which has a maturity of at least 1 year. That means anything you borrow as a long-term fund is repayable only after 1 year. Sometimes it is 10 years, sometimes it is unlimited. There's no duration itself. You can use it permanently. So such sources of funding is also available. The bottom line is long-term means more than 1 year maturity. So by looking at the balance sheet here on the liability side, what are the sources of long-term funds in this? First is the equity. So when you issue shares to shareholders, you don't actually tell them when are you going to repay. So equity capital is an infinite source of funding. It does not have a maturity period at all. Except for preference shares. Preference shares may have maturity period, redemption period, but equity shares does not have redemption period. So anybody who has purchased your company's excuse me, equity shares, and if he wants money, he has to sell the shares in stock market and get the money back. So stock market will provide the liquidity. But what about debentures? Debentures is also a long-term source of funding. And the third, the name itself is mentioned, long-term loans. So these are the three long-term funds in this balance sheet. So this is what capitalization here. I think I've used some other balance sheet to explain, because in this balance sheet, what is there here, it does not have preference shares. But anyways, I think this is a different balance sheet which I've used here. So the bottom line is, what constitutes long-term funds? Anything which is repayable after 1 year. And these are a list of complete, I think I've given all the examples. Equity, long-term, preference, long-term, debentures, long-term, long-term bonds, long-term, right? So these are various sources of long terms. So the total of all the various sources of long terms is called capitalization. So in our example, 75 lakhs plus 100 lakhs plus 25 lakhs. So this 200 lakhs or 200 crores, or sorry, 2 crores is the amount of capitalization. Now, what is capital structure? How is capital structure different from capitalization? The answer is capitalization means only various sources of long term included in the capital. Capital structure, you already know, I already defined it. Capital structure means the combination and the proportion of various sources of funds used in the capital. So we have to represent this in the form of combination and also in the form of proportion, right? Another important point which is worth noting down is that in case of capital structure, we take not just equity capital, but we take owner's fund. Now, what do you understand by owner's fund? Owner's fund means the money which belongs to equity shareholders, because equity shareholders are the real owners of the business. So here in our example in this balance sheet, 75 lakhs is owner's fund, equity shareholders fund. Apart from the 70 lakhs, what else belongs to the equity shareholders?
Reserves and surplus.
Very good. Reserves and surplus is nothing but shareholders' money. So when we are calculating capital structure and when we are calculating capitalization, the difference is in capitalization, we take only equity capital, whereas in capital structure, we take owner's fund. Owner's fund is nothing but equity capital plus reserves and surplus. And after taking this, we have to represent this in the form of a definition what I gave you. First, you have to mention what is the proportion, and then you have to also list out various sources of funds, right? So in our balance sheet, 75 lakh plus 80 lakh. So this is equity, and 100 lakhs plus 25 lakhs is debt. So probably we have to figure out what is the composition, how much percentage is equity, how much percentage is debt. Right here we have done using some other balance sheet. I think this is not the one which based on what we have here. So bottom line is capitalization means list of long-term sources of funds excluding reserves and surplus. Capital structure means list of long-term sources of funds plus their proportion also. Another point what you have to add is you have to add reserves and surplus to owner's fund. But what do you mean by financial structure? Financial structure, simple. The entire liability side of the balance sheet is called financial structure. The entire liability side of the balance sheet is called financial structure. So that's the difference between capitalization, capital structure, and financial structure. Now, this is important because at times what we do is we might use this concept of capitalization, capital structure, and financial structure while doing numerical problems. For example, you will get a balance sheet as a question, and the adjustment will say the company earns 20% on its financial structure. The company earns 10% on its capitalization. The company earns 25% on its capital structure. So that means you should calculate the profit there. Profit is not given. In case if you go wrong, then what will happen? Your entire problem, your entire solution will go for a toss. So therefore, it is very important for you to understand what is the difference between capitalization, capital structure, and financial structure. So if you don't understand this, your numerical calculation might go wrong. So therefore, it is important for you to understand what are the differences. Now, coming to the point which I was telling you guys, deciding capital structure, what are the approaches? What are the techniques available? The answer is we have 4 techniques available to decide capital structure. We might not be discussing all these 4 techniques because it is not there in your syllabus. We'll be discussing only those techniques which are specifically mentioned in your syllabus. So what are these 4 techniques? So the 4 techniques of deciding capital structure. First one is called the cost and risk approach. The first one is called the cost and risk approach. The second one is called EBIT and EPS approach. Let me repeat, EBIT and EPS approach. The third one is called capital structure theories. The third one is called capital structure theories. And the fourth one is called cash flow analysis. So cash flow analysis is the fourth technique of deciding the capital structure. And this is what you people would be studying throughout this chapter. We would be doing numerical questions on these techniques. Cost and risk approach is not mentioned in your syllabus, so we don't be studying this. But I told you what is this cost and risk approach, right? Anyways, once again, we'll briefly go through the concept. Second, EPS, EBIT approach is something what you have studied at your graduation level. So we would be doing 1 or 2 questions just to recall what this approach is all about. Capital structure theories, we would be studying in detail, both theory as well as numerical questions. And cash flow analysis, we'll discuss the concept as to what it means. So these are the 4 techniques of deciding the capital structure, right? So I hope I'm clear on what is capital structure. So with this, we will wind up today's session. So if you people have any questions, any doubts on the concepts, what we have discussed in today's class, you can quickly go ahead and clarify your doubts.